To your first question, that is very clear. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't give a damn about transparency, about personal data, and about control on digital platforms. They pay lip service when we were negotiating our legislation. They play the good guy, say, oh, it's wonderful what Europe is doing. Just could you change this, could you change that, trying to empty the legislation. And then when Donald Trump arrived to the White House, they shifted like that from year to year. And now they are fighting against the digital legislation. Facebook and Meta don't give a damn about political advertising. Why do they stop political advertising? Do you know why? Because they were using political advertising to collect data. And now that they can't collect data freely, and they can't collect sensitive personal data doing political advertising, they can't collect personal data unless there is consent, they are not interested anymore. After all, political advertising for Meta is less than 10% of their business. So, I mean, but this is the reality we are in. And for Google it's the same. I mean, we'll find new actors and we'll find new companies who are interested in doing political advertising. But that is the reality. The reality is very simple, even if we are talking about very complicated issues. Now that the big tech, the few big tech, have an alternative to the European model, they are trying to empty the European model. And when the Democrats were at the White House, still our approach to digital issues were different, but there were some progress, some convergence. Think of the executive order of Joe Biden on artificial intelligence in the public services, which were not very different from some of the measures that we have introduced on AI from the public sector. Today, they have an alternative, and they have an alternative to try to prevent us from applying our legislation. They are using it. But we will be very firm on that. And even if the European Commission is ready to cede to the lobby of Marco Rubio, who is sending instruction to the diplomatic embassies in Europe from US, saying you have to lobby against the digital legislation, even if Donald Trump threatens us, even if the European Commission, there could be someone who seems to be ready to bend down. The problem for the Commission is that their life depends on us. And we will put serious and permanent pressure because our legislation is not against anybody. Our legislation is in favor of a more efficient market, more pluralism and fair competition in the market, better protection for citizens, better protection for minors, better information for consumers, more transparency. So it's not conceived against anybody. We ask specific obligations to the big guys, because the big guys acting, they can have systemic effects. And some of the systemic effects can be dangerous for the system. If they, for example, do not moderate enough disinformation action, if they don't verify enough why doing political advertising, who's paying for what. This is it. And the fact that today there are only many Chinese or US big guys doesn't mean that we have adopted legislation against US or against China. This is the rationale of what we have done. And you have already spoken a lot. I think that Alexandra Ghise also dwelled about this. But I mean, to answer to your question, we have a set of legislative tools through which we start to fight against disinformation, to fight for more transparency, and to fight for better protection of our citizens, be they voters, consumers, or minors. Then there can be some other issue that we can add, and we are working on that. But I mean, to stay really straight to the point, we have, through Digital Service Act, introduced obligation of systemic risk assessment and mitigation for the big guys, for a very large online platform and the very large online searching engine, what I call the big actors, the big guys, and we want them to contribute to diminish the risks linked to disinformation, to electoral manipulation, and to foreign interference. They have to show every 6 months which measure they have taken and what they have done to mitigate the risks. They must guarantee free access to researchers, to the media. There can be also some specific needs to act with urgency. And so there is a crisis response mechanism that the Commission can trigger when a rapid response is required on the social network, on the social platform, and there are new transparency obligations. That is, what are the main for example, the platform must publish database of ads, including who paid for them, targeting criteria, and so on and so forth. And if you want the Digital Services Act, to explain you in a nutshell with very simple words, for those who have studied law, is a general law, is a lex generalis, is an horizontal text. Horizontal text which apply horizontally and introduce minimum requirements and minimum obligations horizontally when something is going on online. Around the fundamental principles, what is illegal offline becomes now illegal also online. So, whereas before was the Far West, what Zuckerberg would like to see in Europe. Then you go, and the first thing. So this is the fundamental horizontal law. And another general law which apply on artificial intelligence is the Artificial Intelligence Act, where we oblige to display on content that they are AI generated. When there is a deep fake disclosure rule, so must be labeled as, as fake, as non-existent in real life. So, we have to show immediately to the user, to the consumer, to the citizen that that content is AI. It's not true. It is real, but not true. Okay? Then we have also introduced some ban on certain AI manipulative practices. AI system can exploit vulnerabilities, psychological manipulation of children. This is why there is a debate in Europe about TikTok, because we think that several techniques of TikTok are manipulative. And in my view, they fall under the new legislation and they should be changed, restricted, or banned. And then there is an obligation for high-risk artificial intelligence. We don't want general surveillance. The Chinese are very happy with that. We don't want it. We don't want social scoring. I don't want to be judged whether I'm a good citizen or I'm a good employee by the algorithm. The Chinese like it. Tough for them. We don't. So we don't want it in Europe. So you see, it is not something we do again. It is something that we do according to our values of our model. And our model is alternative to the full control of the Communist Party in China, but also to the Far West that the US would like to keep with Trump and with the big tech. So these are the two, if you want, basic laws. Then to better improve fairness, transparency and protection in some aspect of our public life, we have introduced specific laws, sectoral law, lex specialis for the lawyers above. And one of these special laws is the transparency of political advertising, transparency and targeting of political advertising, the law for which I was the rapporteur, as we say here, the draftsman. And that is something specifically on political advertising. So something which regulates any activity designed to influence the outcome of a referendum or for an election at any level, from the municipal election to the European elections. So these are rules that do not apply only to the European elections, apply to any kind of elections within the 27 member states of the European Union. And there again, it is mainly around disclosure and transparency. We don't forbid political advertising. Of course, for us would be like shooting in the foot. We are all politicians. We do our campaign, but we want that any content is labeled as political advertising. Today, the example that I always give, you can have influencer, look at what happened in Romania, but not only Romania. You can have influencer that talk about Sandro Gozi, great runner, great cycler, great dancer, etc. They say the bad things about this candidate. They are paid by the candidate. And you don't know anything as a user. You don't know that that influencer is really doing political advertising, but you think that is freely is saying what he thinks, whereas he's paid. You don't know how much is paid, and you know who is paid by whom, who is paying him. What we have done with the political advertising regulation is any activity, not only therefore the activity of the candidates, of the political parties, of the politicians, but any activity which is designed to influence the outcome of an election and which is remunerated to influence the outcome of election must be displayed. So, and the regulation is being implemented now. From the next election, you will see for any content which is linked to a political advertising campaign, this is political advertising. This lady is talking about Sandro Gozi. She's got a contract with Sandro Gozi. She's paid €500,000 for this, and the sponsor of Sandro Gozi are Mrs. Duo, Mrs. Mato, Mr. Mato, and the electoral expert here. Okay? So you, in the transparency notice, you click, you open, and you get immediately all this information. But as far as you get the post, it is labeled political advertising. So you see, we do not forbid, but we make sure that you know that it is not the simple goodwill of the influencer, but legally this influencer is paid by me to talk positively about me. Then we have stricter rules during the real electoral period. We ban, during the formal electoral period, sponsor from third countries is not possible anymore. And you can use for political advertising personal data only that if there is a consent which is provided. Consent must be provided through notice which are very clear, very simple, not the encyclopedia that we receive generally, which nobody reads, and then you click because you are in a hurry and you want to read. No, it must be very simple. If you consent, you can receive political advertising, and some of your personal data can be used for targeting or whatever, but not the sensitive personal data. Not your religion, not your sexual orientation. This sensitive personal data cannot be used anymore for political advertising. Then, what we can do more, we are working. There is a special inquiry committee called Democracy Shield. We think that this is only a legislative answer to the issue of manipulation, disinformation, foreign interference. There are many non-legislative actions that we must take in coordination with the member state, especially on cybersecurity. We have banned the possibility of funding European political party by third country actors, which is linked also to my initiative on political advertising. We think that we must boost media literacy. We must better protect independent media. We must more strongly support a fast checker. And we must work further beyond the political advertising issue to reinforce the integrity of elections. So, I mean, we are women at men at work in this parliament, but we think that we are, at least from the legislative point of view, on the right track to try to have a fairer and more transparent electoral and political contest.